I don't believe that there is any chance in hell that if the Democrats don't retake the Senate, that they don't nuke the filibuster.
Right.
I mean, all they got to do is say, "Oh, well, we're up against Nazis right here. This is not the time. We can't be working with them anymore. This isn't going to work." And then they just get rid of the filibuster. All it takes is 51 votes to get rid of the 60-vote threshold.
Yep.
We have enough Republicans to do it, but there are too many spineless ones in there.
Manhunt underway after federal agents take gunfire as rioters ram vehicles, hurl debris, and a gunman remains at large. So far, we don't know exactly who's shooting at these cops, but we have reason to believe it is linked to the Latin Kings, gang members who have been issued shoot-on-sight orders targeting agents in Chicago. Now, I don't know what you'd call it. Chicago's becoming a war zone. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is civil war, but this is certainly what it starts like, what it looks like. My friends, as I've described it, what you will see is you will wake up and you will hear the news. You will hear the stories. Bombings here, shootings there. Virginia just elected a man who fantasizes about killing children of his political enemies and killing his political enemies. And I've stated to many people, nothing's going to happen. Nothing formally. We're not going to hear stories of conservatives being murdered. Not from this, maybe from other stories. No, the head of law enforcement in Virginia, when he does target prominent conservatives, it'll be for possession of contraband, illicit substance. They'll get pulled over and given tickets. They'll get pulled over and cops will just happen to find a little baggie of drugs, more than enough to jam up any one of these individuals. You got guns, just so happens you did everything wrong with your gun and they're coming for you. Then they'll say, it's not political. This Republican, it's a coincidence he's a Republican. He's just some guy we pulled over. He had drugs. And what will you do about it? I'm going to bring in our friend Nick Sorder to talk about what is currently going on the ground across this country, what he's seen covering this news. Let's see if we can get it going. Looks like we've got it booting up. We will bring in Nick. Should be good to go. Nick Sorder, what is going on?
Let's go, Tim.
It's getting crazier every day. You see the story about ICE. It was CBP getting shot at. I think it was ICE, actually, in Chicago. Well, you shake your head because, is this the fifth, sixth, or seventh time? Which story are you talking about?
Which instance of it are we talking about at this point? You know, I know what you're talking about. I saw the photos of it with you see like a Jeep Wagoneer with the windows busted out from the back because people are genuinely opening fire on these people, and it's a matter of time before they're just assassinated in the streets. And I mean, it's been normalized, man.
That was the attempt. So we've got this over the weekend. The report is that Latin King gang members in Chicago have been given shoot-on-sight orders to kill DHS agents, and then you have that story at the same time. You have the story of this Jeep pulling up while they're trying to they were arresting somebody and open fire. Seems like it's related. Obviously, this isn't the only thing we've seen. It's been bubbling up with the target attacks on ICE facilities, and I got to say it, but another article drops suggesting we could be entering a civil war.
Well, I mean, of course. I mean, the Latin Kings guys and I believe other gangs out in Chicago have put out actual hits on people like this, like Greg Bovino, who's out there every single day in the streets. You have the judges out there, the activist judges that are taking the sides of these violent gangs and persecuting not the gangs, but instead people like Greg Bovino, who they tried to force to come in there to court every single day at 5 p.m., which is just absolutely wild. That was just an attempt to get him off the streets. They didn't want him leading his men as he does. You see these videos of Greg Bovino. He doesn't just bark orders. He actually helps his men carry out those orders. But, man, I look, We've seen the National Guard again and again and again being blocked and barred from going in and assisting federal agents, not doing their own mass roundups, but to protect the men that are being shot at and to protect the facilities that are attempting to be taken over by violent rioters and street gangs. I mean, what more needs to be done before activist judges are finally like, maybe, the National Guard should be used to protect federal agents who are being shot at in the streets.
But here's the thing: the assumption made when you call out these activist judges is that they're just activists and not enemies. And I often try to be careful, I guess, but I don't see the actions of these judges as regrettable disagreements. I think these judges are intentionally trying to abet criminal aliens, cartels, traffickers. And I believe that they have a similar ideology to the Antifa on the ground and the far leftists and the gangs that want to kill ICE.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're look at what we're seeing out in Portland, for example, where you have this activist judge that has been blocking the National Guard from just being able to protect the facility, not do law enforcement work, not chase criminals or anything, just to guard the facility out there in Portland. They know what the final result is going to be. The National Guard will end up being in Portland. That is pretty much a widely accepted outcome at this point. But every single day that they can stall and delay is another day where hundreds of illegals in and around Portland can't be rounded up and sent back home because DHS agents are too busy guarding their own facility. It's all part of the plan. That's what these activists are doing. They want to stall and delay, and it's working.
The fact that we've seen, there's videos where I don't even know if leftist is the right word. Terrorists pop the doors open on these vehicles and allow the criminals to escape. We've got this story where they tried pulling over a vehicle, and the man and woman sped into a shopping center, jump out, and tried running into a school. And then the media tries framing law enforcement as the bad guys. I look at all this stuff, and I'm just thinking, I don't know how we don't see civil war, to be honest. I mean, I try to be, as much as I talk about it, we don't know where it's going to go or how things are going to change. But we're at this point where governors, judges are actively assisting those. If you look at Illinois as a great example, Pritzker, Johnson, and these judges attacking law enforcement, judges saying they can't have barricades in front of their facility while they're getting shot at and people are trying to murder them. At a certain point, it's like, okay, they're trying to murder these guys and you're trying to hinder the guys from protecting themselves. You want them dead, don't you? Where does that bring us as a country?
Well, honestly, Tim, I think one of the more the things that I worry about the most, and this isn't really being talked about too much, there is a campaign going on in the background to encourage jurors to essentially defect. And, it's called jury nullification. I'm sure you know all about it, where you're seeing ICE agents being physically assaulted in the streets. And juries are it's clear as day. It's on video. But these juries still go and they will acquit. Yep. Or you see grand juries that won't even indict, not because there's no probable cause or there's no just proof even. It's because they are being told that they don't have to, if they don't want to, if they don't agree with this, with people that assault ICE agents being punished, then you can just acquit them and they don't have to worry about it. And that's emboldening people to be more and more brazen, especially in places like Chicago.
You do have the sillier story where the guy threw a sandwich at a federal agent and got acquitted, which is pretty crazy. I don't think the cop was injured, but certainly you'd give the guy at least a slap on the wrist for throwing a sandwich. I'm not going to say lock a guy up for 20 years over a sandwich, but, he can spend the weekend in jail or something. He can get a couple days, he can pay a fine. Like, hey, don't do that. But you are right. There have been several stories now where these grand juries and these juries are just going to acquit people. What's terrifying is what we see with other big news, of course, is that Trump issued pardons for several people like, Giuliani, people who were involved in the 2020 election challenge. And you can see in a jurisdiction like Atlanta or New York City, a jury will convict no matter what. You can say the craziest stupid thing, and the political bifurcation is so intense and the vitriol is so intense that you can actually attack a federal officer and get acquitted, and Donald Trump can be falsely accused of crimes and be convicted.
Yeah, dude, I'm terrified for the American justice system at this point. It's all politically based at this point. I mean, we're going to see other folks that are genuinely guilty, like James Comey. You'll see Letitia James, and probably Adam Schiff when he ends up being indicted in Maryland. I don't see any of them being convicted, unfortunately, by juries, because they're being emboldened every time you see something like, even with the sandwich story, right? Here in the Washington, D.C. area, all the local news starts blasting it out there almost in a celebratory fashion that is going to encourage other people that are on these juries in the future to do exactly the same thing. And I mean, we're spiraling, man. And you don't see that coming from the conservative side as much as you would see from the left. People like me, honestly, if I would have been put in front of a jury in Portland, because I have been villainized so much by the media out there, even though I did absolutely nothing wrong to be arrested out there, I believe I would have ended up being convicted. Yeah. And that's just how it is at this point.
I got to be honest. I think the only reason you weren't is because the Trump administration made public statements on the issue, and it put pressure on them where they said the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. But the fact that you got attacked by Antifa and they arrested you shows this is not about law enforcement. This is about partisan conflict. And the way I described it was the police in Portland don't see you as a victim of a crime. They see you as an antagonistic enemy partisan invading their home. That's why I'm like, this is not about the merits of law enforcement, law, Congress. This is political partisans deciding when they want to defend their home and when they don't. But conservatives keep acting as though we're in an argument while Democrats are acting like they're in a war.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what they're being told, especially, they think they're in a war against literal Nazis and fascists. And I mean, you hear that, especially on the streets of Portland. At one point, I got such a credible death threat from a trans individual. We'll publish more about this soon. That I ended up backing off the streets for a few days out there because that individual was literally looking for me, was armed and looking for me, and there was nothing that was going to be done about it. Portland police, really don't show up very much on the streets out there. This is how it ended up working. When I was out on the streets of, I was talking with my attorneys and stuff that are working out there. We put together a 22-page pattern and practice of the Portland police going back years, showing how they operate against Antifa folks versus people that are perceived to be pro-Trump, where they won't issue you permits for protests if you're doing pro-Trump permits, but they will enforce the law against you if you try to have a permitless protest. Meanwhile, we see Antifa going out there, trying to burn down buildings, taking over streets, and none of that is ever enforced against them. And it's wild to me that this has been going on for over 10 years now, and hardly anything has changed. Nothing has been done. The federal government needs to come in and put their foot down here. And I'll release that document here, hopefully today, maybe even tomorrow. But the DOJ is working with me very closely on that. Wow. So hopefully something will happen.
I don't want to describe myself as pessimistic, but I don't want to say I'm optimistic. With the recent shutdown news, the government's, as of this interview, it's not reopened just yet, but several Democrats have broken ranks. But this is Biden's funding package. This was the Biden spending bill that Republicans agreed to extend, and Democrats acted like they didn't want, or they were angry with it. So now the Republicans are viewed as having beat the Democrats by giving them their Biden administration spending package. I look at this stuff, and, Donald Trump says, end the filibuster so we can get the agenda done, and the Republicans won't do it. Yeah. So that makes me a little bit, look, there's some stuff that makes me optimistic, but I get pessimistic when I see this, because it seems like 2028 is going to come around, and Newsom's going to win, or there's going to be some Democrat advantage, and it's going to get hot.
It's definitely going to get hot, but man, I don't see I don't see how we passed really anything. I think we passed a total of 3 bills this year, essentially. That need 60 votes, and it's not. Look, man, the filibuster was never a part of the original Constitution. That
Right.
came later. And it's not like the founding fathers didn't think about things that needed to have, a 2/3 majority or something, right? Like they intentionally did not create a 60 vote threshold in the US Senate. I don't believe that there is any chance in hell that if the Democrats don't retake the Senate, that they don't nuke the filibuster.
Right.
I mean, all they got to do is say, "Oh, well, we're up against Nazis right here. This is not the time. We can't be working with them anymore. This isn't going to work." And then they just get rid of the filibuster. All it takes is 51 votes to get rid of the 60 vote threshold.
Yep.
We have enough Republicans to do it, but there are too many spineless ones in there.
Democrats are going to say, well, thankfully, Republicans never used the nuclear option, so we can with impunity. And that's it. The borders will be opened. All illegal immigrants will be granted amnesty. And that's it. Once they're granted amnesty, now they can vote, and Republicans will never win again, and they don't care.
Right.
They don't
So
care.
we got to play hardball now.
Yep. So I'm not particularly optimistic. Again, I don't want to just act like it's black pill all the way down. I think that all of this just leads to a potential for real conflict, and we're seeing a new article every couple of weeks from some personality, some media organization saying civil war is a real possibility. But I'm curious. One how do you describe this? Something that people are speculating on that I've pointed out. With winter now coming, it's getting cold. We are not going to see people out on the streets protesting the way they were in the summer. And this means that when ICE engages in its operations, there's going to be a lot less, let's just say, resistance
Friction?
from the left. Yeah. Friction.
I think you're 100% right. I still think that you'll have like days of flare-ups maybe if something happens. So I think the National Guard should still be there anyway, ready for those possibilities. But in Portland, for example, on the days where it was like cold and rainy, it was pretty much nobody out there because apparently fascism doesn't need to be fought when it's cold and or rainy.
Right.
And it sort of makes the entire movement look like a joke. But I think that's going to be very true. What you're saying there, you're going to see a lot of this. You're not going to see any No Kings protests in New York in the middle of December. It's not going to happen. But also at the same time, during those months, you don't see Congress doing much either. So
right.
I expect some down months, nothing very exciting happening.
To be fair, as much as I love Thanksgiving and Christmas, this period from Thanksgiving to New Year's, it's just like nothing happens. Everything is frozen and it's boring. But, boring can be good. So, maybe we can use a little of chilling out. The problem is, I think the activist groups behind the scenes will still be organizing. Republicans will go, the politicians, to their families, have their vacations, and completely forget about this. Conservative activists largely will just go with their families and do holiday stuff. But I'm telling you, these far-left Antifa guys who are, wackaloon weirdos are going to keep planning and organizing, not necessarily going out on the streets, but this will be their advantage because they don't have Christmas. They don't have Thanksgiving. Some do, but these wacky street rat guys, they don't.
Well, yeah. I was even out there on Halloween, right, in Portland, and it's like a little bit sad. These people don't have. It's the same people out there. They don't have any family to go spend a holiday with or anything. So holidays really don't matter to them very much to begin with. That is their. This is all they know. A lot of them are misfits, Tim. Like you probably know how this works too because you've covered this for years. You have the Antifa type militant people, right? And then you have the misfits that don't really know what they support. They're mentally ill. They're trans. And these are the only people that they can fit in with. And so that's what they do. That's why you'll see them out there every single day, regardless. And then in Portland in particular, you will continue to see, I think they will reset up their camp out there. The Portland police are pretending like they're doing something right now. That way they can go to the appeals court, because they're doing this on en banc hearing now, which is basically the entire, or at least most of the appeals judges for the Ninth Circuit out there. to rehear this entire case. And so they have to say, look, we're doing something. For once in 10 years, we're actually doing something. And it's all for show. And as soon as that goes away, even in the wintertime, you will see this camp set back up. You'll see fires on the sidewalk, and there will be some sort of group there. The ones that I worry about are the leftist Antifa militants that will come out there. And right now, a lot of them are like they have the D team out there because they don't want the National Guard to come in, so they're just sort of hanging out. Don't have OG Antifa out there at the moment, but they could come in at any time. And if you put your guard down, if ICE were to put their guard down up there, you'll see what happened back in June, where the facility was stormed and they were being held hostage in their own building. You're going to end up seeing something like that happen again.
Wow. Yeah. What's worrying to me is with Chicago, it's not even a lot of well-organized Antifa types. We're hearing stories of people throwing paint from their rooftops, gang members. It's not just this fringe political faction anymore. It's looking like what's happened over the past several years with the Biden administration, bringing illegal aliens into this country, has created massive communities of people who oppose our government, don't respect our country or our laws, and are effectively fighting against the law enforcement trying to stop it. It is maybe you wouldn't call it war, but when you have 10 to 20 million non-citizens and we can't remove them, they entered illegally, then we're on the verge of something, right? Whatever you're going to call it, you've got it in California, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, and it seems to be getting worse, particularly in Chicago. So what happens to this country? I mean, we as Americans voted for this law enforcement, but now in places like Illinois, the governor and the mayor are more beholden to the non-citizens. Zoran Mamdani says he's going to protect the illegal immigrants from Trump.
Yeah, and this is one of my biggest concerns out here, because obviously the immigration was probably the biggest issue on the ballot last year. And I think a lot of people are underwhelmed by the numbers that they've been seeing so far, because whether you like to say it or not, the resistance has been working.
Yeah,
it has been working. And in reality, we don't have 3 more years. We have 1 more year in order to actually get this train at full speed and meet the numbers. The numbers aren't where they need to be. I mean, I'm a big supporter of DHS. I think that the guys in there are doing fantastic work, but there needs to be more. I mean, even if we've deported 600,000 people, and we're looking at 20 million people, that's hardly a dent.
Yep.
They want to look at just the most violent and whatever, but in reality, they need to need to be doing mass roundups, because the fabric of the country is changing. And if we don't get rid of these massive numbers of people, and the Democrats get back in power because these areas have these massive populations of illegals, and so they still count toward the census, and we lose the House and the Senate, and they nuke the filibuster, the country is done. I don't know. I can't stress that enough.
Not just that, amnesty. The Democrats, they're going to play this game. We had I can't remember who we had on the show on IRL. They said, look, maybe we just do an amnesty for the people who've been here for a long time, and then we say no more. And it's like, yeah, it's the 4th time this country would have done that, letting in millions of people. Amnesty, millions of people, amnesty. And what happens? They change the fabric of our social structure in a way that the American people don't want. And what's the argument from the left? It's white supremacy. That if you were born in this country, even if you're black, and you think this country is for Americans, you're a white supremacist. They call Larry Elder the black face of white supremacy. This is what they're going to do. They're going to naturalize all the illegal immigrants that Biden brought in through an amnesty package, ending the filibuster. And the Republicans will never win another election again.
Yeah, and it's a terrifying thought, and it's much closer than people think. When you've got such a massive portion of the population that believes that all of these illegals are actually victims here in a situation like this, and then they do regain power, they have the political capital. The Democrats would have the political capital to come and say, look, this is why we need to give them amnesty, because the Republicans are trying to round them up and put them in concentration camps, and this is the only way we can protect them. and you'd get a huge portion of the country that would go along with that.
What do you think we can see next year on the ground? I mean, you've been covering a lot of the Antifa stuff. We're talking about the winter being slow, but next year's an election year. So maybe we have 1 year left because the midterms are coming up. I think it's going to get really, really hot, but I'm curious, based on what you've seen, what might happen in the springtime, summertime of next year.
I mean, Tim, just being honest, like look at how much it's heated up and continues to heat up, and how normal it is now for, when you mentioned at the top of the show that there are ICE agents that were shot at in Chicago, and I mean this is like basically a story that's at the bottom of page 2 on all of the not all the news networks, but any news network's going to pick it up. It's not a headline anymore. And when it's becoming normalized like that, and you're seeing these increasing these people that are increasingly open about calling for conservatives and ICE agents and stuff to be killed, I don't see how it doesn't get worse. And you see more of a summer of love type thing coming next year in the midterms. I mean, you look at what happened in 2020. They had this perfect opportunity, because it was an election year, this perfect opportunity to just take over the streets, and elected officials were too afraid to do anything about it and come down on them hard, because it was an election year and they were worried about either losing the majority or losing in this case, the presidency. And I think you're going to see something similar to that again. I really hope not. I hope that the federal government can get their act together quick enough and hopefully have National Guard deployed in various hotspots around the country ready for that. But unless they do that, it's going to get a lot worse.
Yeah, I think at least by just before the midterms, we can expect to see another, I'll put it this way, another high-profile assassination or killing, I believe, is very, very likely within this next year, because the killing of Charlie Kirk was like a green light for these people. Death threats have exploded exponentially. There's so many academics who are like, oh, this certainly will wake people up and things will calm down. It's not. It's only gotten worse. I recently had a security assessment. They said it's gotten worse, and we should be upping our security more. And I think the polling will be bad for Democrats more than it should be. Democrats should easily win the midterms next year based on historical trends, but things are changing based on the violence. So I think what may happen is, in their desperation, the far left will act out again. It's going to hurt them in the polls again. Then they're going to act out even more, because they're going to fear if they lose the midterms, they won't be able to stop Trump. I think it's going to get hot. And I hope it doesn't. But if it doesn't, then I think the likely reality is Democrats just end up winning in the midterms. And once they get congressional subpoena power, even with President Trump, people are going to prison, like they did to Bannon and Navarro.
Yeah, and I think you're very right. And when it comes to assassinations, at this point, I have moved to a stance of it's not if, it's who and when.
Yeah.
It's coming, and it won't be long. With Democrats retaking Congress, I think the polls do shift in that direction, and people are worried based on the election results from last week, where you saw Jack Ciattarelli. I mean, that people thought it was going to be a little closer than it actually was. I think Virginia, Republicans had a crappy candidate. I mean, I'm just going to say that's what it was.
A lot of people
Jones.
I'll say this. There are some interesting things about New Jersey. They gained 500,000 new voters in the past couple of years that all voted Democrat. Honest question. How does that happen? I'm not. There's suggestions, of course, that there was cheating. But if you look at there's viral images showing the total number of voters in New Jersey, and the vote margins between the Democrat and the Republican are always comparable, with a slight increase slowly over time. For some reason, this one election, Democrats have an additional 500,000 votes. And people are saying, where did those people come from? So, regardless of whether or not they cheated, people certainly think they did. So, Nick, it's great to have you. Any final thoughts you want to shout or anything you want to shout out before you go?
Keep an eye on Portland. There'd be a big story coming out of there this week. But I also want to say on that measure, if we don't get if we don't start looking into using our DOJ to drill down deep into these elections. I know these blue states continue to stonewall the DOJ in terms of like voter registration data, and you know, like Pennsylvania, for example, you don't even have, like, you can go and register to vote, and you don't need an ID for that either, not to vote nor register to vote. And until we get serious about that, you know, I don't think that anybody can be fully faithful in these elections. So
if
keep
they end
highlighting that, Tim.
if they ended the filibuster, they could pass voter ID. But Nick, where can people find you?
Find me on X at Nick Sorder, NICKSORTOR. And just started a YouTube channel. Somebody took my name though, so it's at Real Nick Sorder on there.
Right on. Thanks for hanging out, brother. We'll see you again soon.
Appreciate it, man.
Take care. That is, of course, Nick Sorder, on the ground, extraordinaire reporter, covering all of that stuff. Antifa, Portland, all of that field reporting that I don't do anymore. My friends, it's been great. Smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. We've got, I believe, Devory Darkins gearing up. He is going live, and we will send you on your way to go hang out with him. He's fantastic. Big fan of Devory. Let's get that raid scheduled. This is the Rumble morning lineup. Shout out to Steven Crowder and the Mug Club, of course, as always, leading us in. Join our Discord community, my friends. You got to do it. $10 a month on Discord. This keeps you active and involved. It's the most important thing. There's two things that are big. For one, obviously, as a member, you make everything we do possible. The most important thing that we have is you guys as members. Advertisements only go so far. None of this would exist if we didn't have you as members. So if you believe in our work and you want us to keep going, we need you to join at timcast.com. But more importantly, the reason why we think it's so important, why I do, is that it keeps you actively involved with other like-minded individuals, and we build community. We are the summation of those who surround us. You will be smarter, more attuned to what's going on, and you're going to have fun. I think we have now like 4 couples that have gotten married. Just for real. Smash the like button, share the show. Thank you all so much for hanging out, and we'll see you all tonight at 8 p.m. for Timcast IRL.